This episode of Juice Guru Radio is brought to you by Try Best, Making Healthy Living Easy, and our new book, Juice Guru, Transform Your Life by Adding One Juice a Day, available now on Amazon and book retailers all over the world. The Amazon #1 bestseller. Get it now.
Welcome to Juice Guru Radio. Discover what the magic and power of juicing can do for you. And now, your host, best-selling author of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Juice Fasting, Steve Prusak.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to Juice Guru Radio. I'm your host, Steve Prusak. On today's show, we've got Jenny Ross, a pioneering spirit in the raw food movement. She's the author of Healing with Raw Foods, Raw Basics, Simple Dehydrated, The Art of Raw Living Foods, and her new book, Veggie Mama, co-written with Doreen Virtue. We're going to have Jenny Ross right after this, so sit back, relax, have a juice, have some tea. We'll be back right after this with Jenny Ross.
Here's another Juice Guru approved product.
Hey there, Juice Guru tribe. Here at Juice Guru, we've tried a lot of juicers, but the one we've chosen as our absolute favorite for the last 3 years in a row has been the Try Best Slow Star. The Try Best Slow Star is a vertical juicer that won't take up much room on your countertop. It operates at a very slow speed of just 47 RPMs, which means your juice won't lose the freshness, quality, and enzymes due to friction and heat. The Slow Star juicer has 3 to 4 times more torque than any other leading vertical cold press juicers. And this is important because it prevents jamming. Jamming is one of the worst experiences you can have with a juicer. But we've never experienced this with a Slow Star. Order your own Try Best Slow Star at the Juice Guru Tribe discount by visiting our website at juiceguru.com. Try Best Slow Star makes healthy living easy. Get one today.
Juice Guru Radio.
Well, Jenny Ross is a pioneering spirit in the raw food movement. She's the director of the International Raw Food Association, connecting raw foods enthusiasts around the world through raw food certification courses. She hosts Try Best Life YouTube channel, Be Well Kitchen. Her new book, Veggie Mama, a fun, wholesome guide to feeding your kids tasty, plant-based meals, coming out September. Pre-orders coming up next week. Veggie Mama, written with Doreen Virtue. Let's welcome to the show right now, Jenny Ross.
Hey, Steve. I'm so honored and grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here, Jenny. You're so busy, and thank you for taking the time. You're up to so many incredible things. But let's go back. Let's go back to how you got involved in healthy eating, raw food. Like, did you grow up this way, or was there a transition that came?
Yeah, so I definitely grew up in a very traditional meat and potatoes family with all the accompaniments, everything, every holiday, every gathering was always centered around a lot of really heavy food. And so for me, growing up that way, I was sick a lot, and I had a lot of things like ear infections and, all the things that kids deal with. But definitely for me, my body it was obvious from an early age, my body was pretty sensitive to food. And so by the time I was middle to end of high school, I was really sick with a lot of digestive issues. So for me, healthy eating came out of a desire to want to be healthy, to feel well, to be vibrant. And I wasn't experiencing that through a traditional diet. And so for me, through a series of sort of uncovering and learning, I realized the key role that food was playing. And I was blessed to learn about raw foods and try raw foods. And raw foods completely healed my body, and that was sort of like the beginning of the end for me in terms of, letting go of so many of those things that I grew up with and embracing a new way of life.
So how did that start out for you? Because you became a raw food chef, had one of the first raw food restaurants in Los Angeles. Like, how did you start learning how to prepare this cuisine?
Sure. When I started changing my diet and lifestyle, I basically quit everything I was doing. I was in the modeling industry prior to that. I was all over the world, kind of living a pretty high-stress lifestyle on top of, trying to deal with my health concerns. And so I moved to this little studio apartment in Laguna Beach for a moment and just sort of did like a timeout, And I started doing yoga, and I started changing my diet, and I learned about raw foods and living foods from Dr. David Jubb. And his book, Life Food Recipe Book, was my first introduction to raw foods. And, I thought, okay, eaten meat and potatoes. I know what that does for me. Let's try this and see what happens. Worst thing that can happen, I go back to eating meat and potatoes. And it was, within 2 short weeks of changing my diet that all of my digestive issues were gone. And, a year later, I went back to my doctor. My doctor said, well, you've completely healed your body, so keep doing what you're doing because it's working for you. And, at that moment, it was like such a freeing moment, it was like getting my life back because every meal was so debilitating prior to that. So I became really passionate, Steve, about wanting people to understand, vibrant health is your birthright. You have to find it. You have to be committed to the process of healing. So, I became so excited. I'm running around. I'm telling everybody, carrot sticks and celery can save your life. And not everybody's ready to hear that information, So I just did the only thing I could think of doing, which was, to show up and be of service, to find the other people who were into raw foods and to try to figure out how I could help other people become interested in something that was so new and foreign to them, for most people. So, and especially at that time, right? I mean, we didn't have a juice bar on every corner, and we weren't even having conversations about organic food yet, really. And so what I discovered was if I could share with you a fantastic pesto mushroom or a brownie made completely from nuts and seeds and, alternative food items, that you'd be a lot more interested in what I had to say about, health and wellness and all of this. So we just started doing events wherever we could. I partnered with other chefs. I worked with educators and would just support them in the kitchen all day. And, pretty quickly it became evident that, there needed to be some leadership in raw foods to help people get it out there. And that was going to be a big part of my purpose in life.
Right. It's a long time now. And so since that time, you've had a few restaurants now and a bunch of books. So do you want to talk about that journey and, what that experience has been like and the kind of results you've seen working with people to get them eating more raw food?
Right. Well, here's the thing. As a chef, especially, right, you have a lot of different opportunities. You can, be a private chef in someone's home. You can, make your own foods and sell them and distribute them in places like Whole Foods. And, in the early days with raw food, there were very few outlets to get the food out there. So you really sort of had to create your own space, where you could say, here, come to this space. I'm going to show you about this stuff. And so it became really clear, and it was such a passion of mine, this idea of sharing food with people. So restaurants sort of became my thing pretty quick. And I was just so passionate about wanting to create and have spaces that people could come, they could feel comfortable, they could experience something new. And it's such a labor of love. I mean, restaurants are intensive work, no matter what type of food you serve, but especially with raw foods, right? Because we make everything from scratch. So we can't, call up a bread vendor and say, hey, send me some loaves of bread. It just doesn't work that way with raw food. And so, because of that, I've been able to interact with literally thousands of people, and I have heard story after story of healing and, reversal of a health condition, or someone literally walking up and out of, stage 4 cancer and going into remission because of food choices, in association with lifestyle choices. So, even from simple things like arthritis or, pain in the joints or not being able to sleep that well, all the way up to these, really big concerns in our world today, like, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. I've just seen so many lives heal and change, and people experience a better daily experience of life, and that's really what it's all about. So because of that process of sharing and really that just being of service to that idea, that healing is possible and restoration is possible for all of us, that's been the greatest gift in all of this for me. And so, we still are doing restaurants, we're writing books, and, now I've just been blessed, Steve, to be all over the world and share raw foods. And, what I've noticed is we're all the same. It doesn't matter what culture you come from, your desire for health and leading a healthy life is the same. And so it's really been a really beautiful experience and continues to inspire me. We all have our moments of just, wow, this world is hard, I'm tired, or something along those lines. And, I'm just so inspired by every day that I meet somebody that tells me, you know what, I came to the restaurant, I changed my diet, and, now I'm 100 pounds lighter, and I've reversed, a lot of conditions I was dealing with. Those are the moments that just get you going, yes, that's what this is all about.
Right. I totally agree. And what about juicing? Because I know that's played a role in your life. How did juicing first, were you into juicing before raw food, and how does that play into your lifestyle right now?
Juicing and raw food kind of came into my life at the same time, really. And juicing has always been a fun exploration for me because, growing up, I grew up in one of those families where you ate like bananas and apples and maybe an orange here or there. You didn't have a whole lot of different variety. And so I was gifted a Champion juicer, a very old version. It was like, mustard yellow. And my friend John Peck, who was like a world-class surfer in his day, he's like, Jenny, you gotta start juicing. Here, take this guy. I haven't used it for a while. He gives me this Champion juicer. And, I just started putting everything I could in it. I went to the farmer's market. Oh, let's stick some chard in there today and see what it tastes like, or this or that. And, it was a lot about experimentation at that time because all the books were, written in the 60s and the 70s, and they weren't, current day information. And now we have such great, bodies of work like your book, Steve, and, sharing juice has become a lot easier because the combinations that are going to work, and we know the healing qualities now, and they're well documented and things like that. So juicing, from the beginning has been part of my raw foods lifestyle, I would say every day or every other day, incorporating juices, and especially because digestion was an issue for me. The juices have always been a way to get that quick shot of vitamins and minerals without having to go through the digestive process. And, I would say that was a huge part of my healing process. And, living in Laguna Beach, too, at that time, going way back, I was right by this little restaurant called The Stand, and they have been there also since the 60s. And, they juice there, so that would be my morning routine. Get up, go grab a juice, go sit on the beach, and, try to figure out what was going on, and all these changes in my life.
God, it's so crazy. We were living there at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and it was, in those days, you wanted to have a raw foods experience. You were in a garage somewhere or a pop-up, in some random spot. It really was almost like an underground movement.
Right.
But what was so beautiful about it at the time is we were all really just trying to learn and understand and grow together. And it was, that was my first example of what community can be. Here we all are. We're all from very different backgrounds of life, but we're all looking for the same thing. So, that was an important lesson early in my life, Steve. Grateful to have shared it with you and so many other beautiful people,
I know. I kind of miss those days sometimes. And I'm really excited to talk about your new book and kids and getting the message out about, healthy eating for kids, because you're a mom, and this new book we're really excited to hear about. Before we talk about that, though, so if someone's listening to this right now, what advice would you have if they're, this idea of raw food is new to them? How do we start eating more raw food? Do we need to eat all raw food? What would your advice be to somebody new to this idea?
Well, I would say there's really 3 key understandings that I feel like are important for everybody starting out on a new journey. One, make it an adventure. Keep it fun. It's very easy when you're looking at something new to become sort of rigid and forget that this is about, evolving into something more, hopefully something greater or a greater experience of wellness in your own life. So, remember from the beginning that this is supposed to get you somewhere that is more expansive. So have fun with the process. I think that's really important. Some of the ways that, I remember going back to my early days that I kept it fun. Every time I went to the farmer's market, I would grab something new, something I never had seen before. And I would try to figure out, well, can I blend it? Can I juice it? Can I just eat it, straight up? Mm-hmm. For some things that worked well, other things, you wanted to combine them. But having that sense of adventure is really important. As far as how much raw food to do, the more you add, the better you feel. And so everybody's body is so individual. But I usually see that clients and customers do really well when they're hitting at least the 50% mark of raw foods. And, Steve, that can be so simple because that could be a juice or a smoothie in the morning, a salad for lunch, and a healthy fresh fruit snack in the afternoon, and then maybe more of a traditional dinner. But by changing up that first part of your day, you can get a big shot of energy and notice that you're really starting to restore your body pretty quickly. And from there, it's a lot easier to do more and more. And then the third thing I would say is, find a community that supports you. Connect to other people. There's meetup groups now. At 118 Tarzana, we're hosting a happy hour, and we buy the drinks. So whether it's kombucha or a glass of organic wine, our encouragement is for people to come and meet other people on our patio and get to know other people looking for the same sort of solutions. And that is really powerful. I mean, that's what got us through the early days, right?
Right. So, and that restaurant's in Tarzana, California, 118 Degrees, right?
Yep. The website's just 118degreesla.com. And we got lots of community events and things like that to try to support people.
Definitely worth checking out once you're in California. So let's talk about this new project with Doreen Virtue, who I know is big in the conscious living community. How did you pair up with her? And let's talk about this new book and getting kids to eat, tasty plant-based meals.
Well, Doreen and I go way back to the Laguna days. She was one of my first ever raw foods clients when I was chefing raw foods. And I get emotional about it because, she really encouraged me to move into the world of writing books and being of service that way, and was very supportive. So my first book that I ever wrote was co-authored with Doreen, and it was all the great recipes from the original 118 back in Costa Mesa. And so it was because of her that really kind of launched my career as an author. And so all the independent works that I've done since then, have been really well supported by the same conscious life community, you're talking about. And so we said, okay, it's time for another project. It's time to do something, that matters to both of us. And, I'm a mom. I have two small kids. I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. And Doreen is also a mother, but her kids are older. And so she helps transition her own children's lifestyle to a more plant-based lifestyle and more raw foods later in their life. And then, of course, my kids, we've been trying to instill this sense of understanding in them from a very early age. So we thought, okay, that's the perfect next project for us, put together a book to help encourage other parents and give them the information we were both looking for at these different stages so they can really feel comfortable and strong in raising a plant-based family. And so we're so excited about this book because we've spent, 2 years on it, and a lot of energy and love has gone into creating a project that has a lot of lifestyle guidelines and, simple things like how do I understand protein for kids at different ages and stages. And then, of course, we've got great recipes and things you can, use every day in your own home, simple things. And so, I couldn't be more excited to share it. It was such a fun project working with Doreen and really the understanding that this is the next step for the planet. Our kids that are coming in now, they have different requirements and different needs, and they need the support of a really vibrant diet. So it's time, the time is now to move into this.
Wow.
So we're excited.
Yeah, what a great way to get the word out, to teach parents and to teach them to educate their kids. And Veggie Mama, what a great name, too.
Yeah, we wanted to do something fun. So, throughout the book, we have a lot of really fun imagery. And, my kids make a few appearances in there. And actually, a lot of the recipes from the book were created alongside my kids. And, that was really fun for me because, my son Dylan was born with a number of food allergies. And we talk about that journey in this book. And, there is no real black and white thing for parents these days. Parents have a lot of gray area going on with their kids. And, so my two kids are very different. And we talk about that, what I do for one versus the other and how to be flexible in your home, when dealing with different things like food allergies and, all of it. It's so important. And being a parent alone is hard enough, but trying to do something totally different than what your neighbor is doing in the way of food, it requires some support. So hopefully we can create that support for families.
What about with pregnancy? Do you touch on that? And was that an issue for you when you were pregnant the 2 times and being raw?
Yeah, pregnancy and raw food actually led to incredible pregnancies and incredible childbirths. And, I talk a little bit about that in this book. Again, really as a sense of encouragement, because I think people are so afraid, of doing something, maybe different than their parent did. Because usually when we're pregnant, we go direct to our parent or another parent figure in our lives to understand what's about to happen, because it's all so new for us. And, but a lot of us are wanting to live really differently and have a different experience. So for me, I had raw pregnancies for both of them. I, had 2 great natural childbirths, and it was the most empowering moments in my life so far, was both of those experiences. And so, we talk about that. And we also talk about postpartum, how to handle your body as you move through breastfeeding and as you move through other, fun things that we experience as women during postpartum moments and all of that. So, there's a lot of support. And, I was looking for that when I was going through my pregnancies, and I found that it was really challenging, and there was a lot of misleading information about vegetarian diets, because it's just like, all the other days of your life, right? You need to stay balanced. And so, of course, when you're eating a diet that's perceived as more limiting by a lot of people who don't understand, that there is so much expansiveness to raw food and veganism and stuff like that, you're dealing with helping educate a whole new class, And I remember going with my doctor, and I said, okay, I'm not going to tell him that I'm a raw foodist, right? I'm just going to tell him that, I'm a healthy human. And, so it was kind of funny because we were, in there. He said, well, how's your diet? And I said, I eat really well. I eat a lot of really fresh food, and, it's mostly all plant-based. And he said, okay, well, I'm just going to give you a blood test every time you come in. Then, hope you're not afraid of needles. And I said, no, that's fine. That's better anyways. I would love to know, what's going on, from a physical science perspective with my body. And so that kind of gave me a backup too, right? Well, the funniest thing was, Steve, after the second time of drawing my blood and, he says, you know what, we don't need to do this anymore. He's like, you are literally the healthiest pregnant person I've ever had in this office.
Wow.
He's like, I have never seen somebody, with these numbers, on iron and calcium and all of this. He's like, you're not supplementing? I said, no, I just, I do a lot of superfoods and I do my regular foods and, it works out well. So it can be done, and it can be really a beautiful experience. So I really hope all women listening to this, can take a moment and check into those chapters if pregnancy is your next step in life, because it can be such an empowering moment for you and a beautiful step of growth too. So,
what about some of the other cooked foods out there like quinoa? Do you recommend things like that in the diet, as an educator, or are you recommending to your clients to try to eat all raw food?
Most of my clients, Steve, do really well between 70 and 90% raw food. I do have clients that are in a healing process that we really try to keep 100% raw. But the reason is just the modern world we live in, right? And it's important to set yourself up for what is attainable in your life. And so if you're not living inside of a raw foods restaurant all day and you don't have time to make food all day long, right, you're going to have to be really clear about what's available to you so that you do stay balanced. So a lot of my clients will do things like the, steamed quinoa, maybe some lightly steamed vegetables. Other things that we recommend are all whole foods, plant-based foods. So we're really never recommending things like, a lot of the vegan substitute food you see out there, because it's not doing that much for you from a health perspective, So that's always what I look at with my clients is, as much raw as you can do, and then what's remaining, let's make sure that that's really clean, healthy, whole foods. And let's set you up, meaning, on Sunday, maybe you'll cook up that quinoa, and maybe you'll do, a batch of lentils, things like that you can combine together throughout the week. So, yeah, I would say at this point, for the reality for most people we're looking at high percentage raw, and then we're really looking at the rest to be balanced. Does that make sense?
Oh, it's awesome. Jenny Ross, the new book, Veggie Mama, A Fun, Wholesome Guide to Feeding Your Kids Tasty Plant-Based Meals. That's coming out in September, but pre-order's coming up next week, so you can check that out at Amazon. We'll have a link under the show notes for that, as well as her website, which is JennyRossLivingFoods.com, where you can find out all about it and pick up more of her books, because you've got like 5 books out there now. What do you recommend, what do you recommend as a starter out of all these books you've got here?
Well, so Raw Basics was a book that I wrote after teaching the class Raw Basics for almost 10 years. And I thought, okay, it's time. I'm just going to put this material in a book, and I'm going to get it out there so that people who can't come to California and see me, they can start learning this information. And so that's a really good starter book because it's simple recipes that you don't need a dehydrator for. You can blend and go with most of them. And it has a lot of great lifestyle information, too. There's a superfoods guide in that book and a guide to stocking your pantry and a guide to shopping. So all of that stuff makes it really easy and accessible to jump into the lifestyle. And then the other book, Steve, that I've been recommending to a lot of people lately has been Healing with Raw Foods, because that's a book that, after interviewing over 30 doctors and working with incredible physicians, like Dr. Esselstyn from Forks Over Knives and Dr. Amen from the Amen Clinics, we took every part of the body, the brain, the heart, the, connective tissues, everything. We wrote a chapter on all the main systems of the body. So you could literally pick it up, if you're having digestive issues, and go to the chapter on digestion and learn more about that part of your body and what would support it from a food standpoint. So, a lot of people, because they are coming to Raw Foods for a healing opportunity, they could pick that up and they could start with what's going on in their body right away. So I think that book has become sort of a manual for people trying to move through different healing processes.
Awesome. Well, Jenny, thanks so much for coming on the show today. We're just so excited to see your evolution over the last 15 years now. It's crazy. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Stephen. I want to thank you, too, for all your support over the years, because I think, it's really that coming together of the community that's made this such a fun journey and still is such a fun journey. And, we're all still learning. Wait to see what's next for all of us. So cheers, Steve. Thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it.
Cheers. Jenny Ross, a real inspiration. Thank you for being here again. Jenny Ross, JennyRossLivingFoods.com. I'm Steve Prusak. We'll see you on the next episode of Juice Guru Radio.
Thank you for listening to Juice Guru Radio. Find out more about us at JuiceGuruRadio.com. Until next time, get your juice on.